A while ago I showed you how I have my alt account set up to run on a virtual machine, and this is one of the ways how I multibox on my phone. I can theoretically run up to 5 accounts without affecting the performance much. Now I noticed a lot of players have a problem with installing the virtual machine, so today I will go and do a in-depth tutorial on how to install the program. The program seems to have issues running on the newer versions of Android, but there is a workaround that I found on my tablet, which has Android 12 or 13, so that should be one of the latest versions. Now, on my device, on my phone here, the multiboxing thing works really well. Haven't had any issues with it at all. I mainly use this to have a scout or tackle account for the Revelation or for the Apocalypse Striker or other ships. Now, in a moment I will show you how the whole thing looks. So this is basically how I have this set up. Sometimes I like to plug in the mouse or keyboard into the phone, that way I have more control. After all, there is native support for that on Android, so you can do it without a problem. This does run on a phone, not on a computer. This is a Poco F3, a 2-year-old, I guess a mid-range phone, and there's the box over here. The device has a pretty good GPU, pretty good CPU. Overall, does seem to be running really well with this setup that I have. Okay, now let me go back and turn this thing on. One interesting thing about the virtual machine, it runs even if your screen is offline, so it doesn't really affect the game if it's running. That way you will not have any issues with the game crashing or disconnecting. Now, on both accounts I run the maximum possible settings, although I would recommend that you don't do this. I usually run both on Ultra just because I record and I want everything to look good, but you don't really have to go everything on Ultra on both accounts. This will put a lot of stress on the hardware. However, I haven't had much of a problem with the performance, even after the game has received the new graphics update a couple of days ago. However, I did notice a significant increase in the overall hardware stress when I run both accounts. This will really affect the battery life, and you can expect a lot of heat, so that's why I would say that you don't have to go run both on Ultra. And just to show the heat that is happening right now, I have this little application that can also be opened up as a window. Very useful. I use this for temperature monitoring, and overall I would say that's the best application for temperature monitoring. And well, here you can take a look at the internal temperatures. It's pretty toasty at 75 degrees Celsius. Sometimes that goes up to 85, but that's about the optimal working temperature, so there will be no damage done to this device. However, not all devices are the same, and this temperature might be bad for other devices. After all, this thing is a flagship, and it has a flagship chip inside, so it should be okay. But yeah, running 2 accounts on Ultra will be quite demanding, even for a high tier top of the line chipset. Now, how to install this virtual machine? So, since it's not available on the Play Store, you have to go on the browser and you have to enter Vimos Pro on the search bar, and I use this, I guess, alternative Play Store that does offer the application package that you can install, and I will do that right now. Download XAPK, and you have to wait for the download to complete. Now, once the download is completed, you go and find the application in your file manager. Now I use Total Commander, but this should work on any file manager that you can use. I will create one folder. It will be called zip, because I will have to go and rename the extension to a zip file. That way I can easily extract the contents and directly install the application. Now I will show you why I do it this way. It's one way to avoid Android being, Android and not installing the application. You can install it this way by directly installing it from the XAPK file, but the new versions of Android don't like that for some reason, and it will not work. Even if it installs, the application will never run. So I have to go and rename, changing the extension from XAPK to zip. Okay, it's now zip, and now it's renamed. It's now a zip file, so you can easily open it, and you can verify and extract the contents. The application file is your main file here. The OBB data is not going to be important, because even if you go and transport it to the folder, it's not going to run, because, well, the new versions of Android just don't like that. So you have to manually do this and copy to the zip folder, and now everything is in the zip folder. You go to the Vimos APK, the 37 megabyte file, although this file here is not going to be important, and you click on this one. You click on install. Now this Total Commander has, well, it's the new version, and the new version cannot install applications because, well, reasons, I guess. So I have to go to the default file manager that I have on this thing, and from here you go find the zip folder, which should be on the bottom. There's a zip folder. You open the zip folder, you click on the APK file, which is going to be the installation file, and you click on install, and it's now installed. Okay, so you go back and find the application or the virtual machine on your home screen or in your application drawer. You open it, and this will automatically install the ROM on the device, and now you have to wait for the download to complete. This way the Android will not mess up, and it should actually run. The other ways that I tried out did not work because, well, reasons that Android doesn't explain to me. However, this one seems to be working really well, and once it's installed, it will slowly boot up. And now it's installed, it's booting up. And now you are inside of the virtual machine. Now there's a little tutorial that I'll quickly skip because I already know how this thing works, and here we are on the home screen. Now, first thing that you should do, you should go to the virtual machine options, which you can do by scrolling upwards from this point, and you go to the virtual machine options, and here you can enable Google applications, you can adjust the resolution, you can adjust the refresh rate. I would say go with the options that are going to be the best for your device. Every device has different options, so make sure that you balance out so that the machine doesn't crash. And now the main thing, installing the game. Now you can directly install the game from the Play Store, which should be inside of the virtual machine once you enable the Google apps. You will have to log in your account and then go and install the application from that point. But I like to go on the official site and download the file from the official Eve Echoes site. That way, I know that the version is going to be running real well. Now you have to go and import the game from the phone storage to the virtual machine storage. And well, you go here, you click on import, and from this point you go to the option to the right, you click on the storage, and you go scroll down, click on the installation file, and you just wait for the virtual machine to install the game. A pretty straightforward, easy process that should not take too much time. And now you have to wait for it to install, to import and install. This is a automatic process, so once it's imported, the installation will start automatically. This might crash if it was installed a different way. Okay, now once it's imported and once it's installed, you can go and start up the game. You go back to the main screen. You can take the game out and put it on the home screen for convenience, I guess, and you can boot up the game. Now the screen might appear broken, as you can see, because it's rotated, but that will be changed in a moment. There we go, much better. And now once you are in game, you can download all the assets and you can log in into your account, and basically you can log in into the main account on the main OS, and then you can open up the virtual machine and open the alt account. And now you can easily multibox on your phone, tablet, or whatever, on a fridge, that also works. Now, what do I use the alt account for? Well, my primary use for a alt is tackling or scouting. And I will show you how this looks and how this works. Now I prefer to keep the window right on the edge. If the alt is being used as a scout, then I put the local in the edge over here and the PvP overview also right on the edge, and I can put it right over here where it will not affect the main screen much. Basically, the only purpose for a alt would be eyes to see what's happening, and if you are camping, this is one setup that can work. Also works if you are running missions, to have a anti-scan alt that can notify you if someone is trying to scan you. But in my case, I use it for PvP, for tackling, and I will show you some PvP examples over here as well. And there is a blackbird that popped in out of nowhere. Very convenient, because this wasn't planned, so this actually works really well for me. For a tackle purpose, it works excellent if you are in a slow battleship or a capital ship. However, it looks like the blackbird did not jump through, unfortunately. So I guess I'm not going to be tackling anything today, at least not right now in this moment. But if that ship jumped, you can easily jump with the alt, tackle with the alt, and then do DPS with the main ship. Works excellent for camps, works really well for hunting, works really well for any sort of PvP that you might be doing. And in my case, I do PvP a lot, so it's kind of one of the most important things that I have to do with the alt account. And once the target is destroyed, you can easily go back and wait for the next target to pop in. Of course, you have to go and adjust the overview, you have to adjust the approach or orbit, And in most cases, I personally like to use a cheaper ship for this job, because I always expect that the alt account dies during the tackle. I mean, there's always a chance that the tackle dies, because that's its purpose, and I keep the alt very cheap and very affordable. The whole ship costs like 29 million. Now, one example, when you are using the alt as a full scout, sometimes you don't have to go and tackle, but you can be prepared for the next target, and this was one Astra that got destroyed in such a way. Basically, scouted the ship, I got prepared for the ship, and well, I have destroyed the ship. 1.3 billion, a solid kill, and a solid catch. Decent loot as well. Well, that's one Astra less. With a capital ship, it's very important to have a tackle, and if you don't have corp mates that can tackle, then you have to tackle yourself, and that's also where the alt account can be very useful. Now, it might be difficult at first to run two accounts on a small screen. However, if you plug in a mouse, that might be a lot more easier, or if you go and have a big display or a tablet, then it might be a lot easier. In my case, this screen is about, I don't know, 6.8, and I would say it's okay. It gets the job done, that's for sure. I got used with the alt, so I don't really have much issues with the display size. Next we have on Caracal Navy. The alt account is on the other low sec gate. This can also prevent you from getting jumped. Basically, you can leave the gate before the hostile fleet arrives. You can do this with multiple accounts as well that are spread across different points in or around your home system or hunting area. That way you know what's coming, and that way you will be always prepared for whatever ship comes in. And this was also a pretty nice Caracal Navy, 83 million. I will give you a couple more examples of how I do the PvP part, and then I'll show you how we can use this for PvE. I think the PvE aspect might be equally as benefiting, because you can run a logistic ship, you can run a guardian, you can run all of the different ships that you might need. And in my case, I think I will skill my alt to be a logistic ship. That way, if I go and do high sec missions, I can go full DPS. It's very important to maximize the things that you like to do, if of course you enjoy doing them. That's why we have so many big ships. And this time around we have one Vexor Navy. This Vexor should go down very quickly. But the alt account into PvP has also very high practical usage, as you could see here. Let's take a look at the kill. 55 million, not bad. And the alt is still on the null sec gate, watching the traffic. Okay, now let's go and run some missions. How do I plan to run the alt account? Now you can technically run two DPS ships. In this case I have this Stabber fleet and one Macarial, and I have some missions prepared. Now ideally you want your alt to have a good ship as well as your main account, so that you have a lot more DPS. However, since my alt account is still quite fresh,
Fleet jump.
I will have to go and use the good old stabber. Fleet warp works really well, although the command here is
Warp drive
a
active.
little bit missing, because I didn't set the fleet commands properly on my alt account, but it should work. The fleet warp should still run really well. And let me adjust the modules. Now, like I said before, ideally I want my alt account to be a logistic ship. It can also be a guardian, but the Macarial is shooting at a close range, so I guess a shield logi would be ideal. I guess I'll just set up the options a little later. The fleet options, that is.
Fleet jump.
Okay, let's warp to the mission. I expect the stabber to warp first, because,
Warp
well,
drive
that thing
active.
is a cruiser after all. Although the Macarial is also a cruiser on its own, but, you know, it's still a battleship. A oversized cruiser. And well, now both... Oh, well, not yet at the mission, my apologies. I thought I was warping towards the mission. Well, that will happen in a moment. Okay, here we are. Let's go fleet command and fleet
Fleet
warp.
warp.
Adaptives on the stabber have been activated. This is also
Warp
how
drive active.
you can easily give your alt a lot of ISK. Your main account already makes probably a lot of ISK in high sec missions, so with the alt you can easily just basically by just being there with the main account you can get a lot of ISK for the alt. And this is how I have funded the first ship for my alt account. Basically, I was running missions with the Macarial, and the alt account was lurking around in a pod, basically just leeching off the ticks. And with a couple missions done, the alt had about 200 million ISK, so I was able to fund the first ship, which is the stabber, and the alt now even has Omega. So my main account is going to be helping my alt account to maintain Omega throughout the month with PvP, with missions and things like that. At one point my alt account will be self-sufficient to maintain its own Omega without the need of the main account running missions or things like that. Now, I thought about what might be the next tackle ship that I can use on the alt, and well, preferably a ship with 4 medium slots, just so that I can fit quad webs. And I think an Ashimu might be the best way to go, because the Ashimu has a bonus on
Enemy
web
ships
range
detected.
and has 4 low slots, so I could technically web targets at 26 kilometers, and that is going to be a lot safer than webbing them at 12 or 13 kilometers. So on my alt account, the next goal would be to upgrade from a stabber to an Ashimu, and of course we'll have to get the skills for the ship and things like that, so that I can take advantage of the webs and of the ship. Its purpose would be tackle to web targets for the capital ships, or for the slow battleships, both work. After all, the Blood Raiders have a very nice roll bonus, and overall they are very good ships. They're slow, that's true, but I can web from 30 kilometers. That means I don't have to approach the target a lot in order to web them. That's at least in theory what I have planned, but we will see. what I will do with the alt. High chance that I might just go and get the Ashimo. Perhaps, if lucky, that will happen very soon, because I already have a lot of loot, a lot of ISK, and all I need to do is basically just give the alt the ISK and then just buy the stuff, skill, and I can fly an Ashimo without a problem.
We're under attack.
Now the fun thing about a virtual machine is that the game doesn't recognize it as a emulator. It actually recognizes it as a phone, because that's what it kind of is. It's basically another Android operating on top of Android. Very interesting thing, and a very useful one. Now, how many accounts can you open? That really does depend on your hardware performance. In my case, I could open up like 5 or 6 and it should still run really well. The one thing that will
We're under attack.
impact your performance is going to be the heat. After all, running 2 games at the same time and running an entire operating system at the same time while playing the game is quite the demanding thing. And unfortunately, this only works on Android. Haven't seen this running on a iOS device, because iOS can't multitask, unfortunately. So Android is the only mobile platform that can do this at the moment. Runs really well. I would say runs even better on a
We're
custom
under
ROM.
attack.
However, custom ROMs nowadays are, let's say, not in a good shape. Used to be much better a couple years ago, but unfortunately, custom ROMs are slowly kicking the bucket, and the ROMs that I see nowadays are not even close to what they used to be a couple years ago, so I don't really use them. If you have a custom kernel that runs with your default operating system, that is the way to go now, and that way you can actually improve the performance while retaining the operating system stability that you get from the official software, from the official operating system. You know, back, I don't know, a couple of years ago, all of my devices were running on custom ROMs, but nowadays, yeah, it changed a lot. It really does. It really did change a lot. Unfortunately, because I really liked the custom ROM aspect. But hey, maybe better days, when better developers come up. We will see. Well, that was the first mission, and I would say it was pretty good. Now you have to be careful, and you will have to spend time watching the alt account as well, because it's very easy to get distracted and to lose the alt to the
Warp
mission
drive
rats
active.
over here. Especially if you are a loggy with the alt. Although they don't do a lot of damage, and as you can see, even a stubber fleet with an afterburner can easily tank all of the ships. And that alt doesn't even have very good skills. Still working on a lot of things on that account, so definitely the skills on my alt are not good. However, as you can see, more than enough to survive a tier 10 mission with a Macarial.
We're under attack.
I also like the fact that I don't have to use my shield booster a lot on the Macarial, because the alt seems to be taking all the aggro from the ships. Not really sure why that's the case, but I guess those ships just don't like the stabber for some reason.
We're under
The Stabber is
attack.
such a good ship. And the Stabber 2 became also a fantastic ship with the latest update. The next patch next week is going to be wild. Cannot wait for it. New ships are coming in. New big boats are coming in that we have been waiting for a very long time. I know my corp mates were really happy when they saw the new ships. The true EVE players, they are happy with every new ship.
Enemy ships
Am I going to be flying them? Well, perhaps. There's a big chance that I will. I like special ships. I like bling ships, and I already have a lot of ideas that I will do with those new boats. But so far, it's been a pretty good year so far with this game. There's so much that happened, and overall, it was honestly a very, very nice experience. There is one more wave left for this mission, and then I will slowly dock
We're
and
under
probably
attack.
go and run some PvP because, well, I really want to blow up some ships. The main thing that we do is PvP, and so far I'm very curious to know, did the installation work for you for the alt account and for the virtual machine? There is a lot of them. There is a lot of virtual machines, but I found that this one that I use works best. Now, it might be a device thing. It might work for my device best, but on all of my devices that I tested it on, it run really well. So I think it should also run really well for you as well. Again, hardware performance is going to be very important. And speaking of hardware performance, you don't really have to go with a really expensive phone to run this. A 4GB device, a device with 4GB of RAM should be able to run this on lowest without a problem, because on ultra settings the game does use about 2.5GB, so right now the game is using about 5 because I run both accounts. But on lower settings it uses about 1GB of RAM, so
Warp scrambled.
you can reduce the settings on both accounts and it will reduce the hardware usage a lot, and that will improve performance. But if you have a monster device, then I guess you can run this without a problem on any settings. I mean, I believe most of you guys already have really good phones and tablets, so it should not be a big problem to run this. Which is honestly a good thing. It means that a lot of players might be able to run this without much of a problem. I even managed to get this to work on my ancient Galaxy S7. That thing is like 7 years old now, so and it still works really well. Didn't crash, didn't have a problem. However, I did have to adjust the options a little bit, because the resolution on that thing is really high, and in order to make the gameplay smoother I had to reduce the virtual machine resolution a little bit, but in the end it did end up working really well without any problems. Now I forgot what wave this mission was on. I think this is the last wave. Yeah, it is the last wave. We have 2 strikers. And here I did let my device overheat a little bit, just to show you the type of I guess, slowing down that you might encounter, but as you can see, it's nothing too serious. I also have the mouse plugged in, and for some reason the mouse being plugged in also does increase the hardware usage. So in a normal scenario, you will not expect, you will not feel a lot of heat coming from the device unless you go and do a lot of things at once. Well, that in return will definitely cause a lot of heating. But honestly, it is to be expected, because after all, this does require some really decent hardware utilization in order to run. All right, well, that was very nice. That was very nice. And overall, this is how I have this set up. This is how I usually run my alt account with my main account, and this is one of the ways how you can multibox on your device without a problem.
Autopilot destination
I like this way
reached.
because you don't have to buy an extra device just to run the game on. It runs perfectly fine on one device, and
Fleet
overall,
warp.
it's, I would say, it does feel a lot more natural to do it this way than, for example, to use 8 phones, for example, or 8 tablets. I would add that it does feel a lot better on a tablet because of the big screen, but it also does work really well on a phone. Well, with that being said, hope that this could help you set up the virtual machine and the alt account. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. And with that being said, hope that you enjoyed, stay safe, play safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.